If you've never registered for EPR and you've already been selling, don't be like, oh, well, they've never caught me and I have batteries or I have electronics. We've actually seen somebody selling over a year, over 8 months, and all of a sudden Amazon cracks down on a certain area or a certain category and the store shut down out of nowhere. So just because somebody has already been selling and has those categories and has never registered for EPR doesn't mean that you're not in a position where it could get shut down, because we've seen it happen. Going into like the EPR and packaging, so that happens after we've done your VAT and we've registered for the VAT. This is that compliance aspect that we've been chatting about. Lewis, you want to take that away?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Ali did touch on this a little bit earlier, and basically selling in Europe, I'm not going to read that same slide, everybody can read that. But yeah, selling in Europe means that you must recycle your packaging, batteries, textiles, and other materials. So EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. Basically, what they want you to do in certain countries, not everywhere, but in certain countries, what they want you to do is they want you to register for the amount of waste that you're producing in that territory. So this is probably the bane of Mark's existence, because this is predominantly Germany, but everywhere else it's starting to creep in here and there. But essentially what the German authorities want you to do is they want you to register for packaging for any goods that you're producing. So anything. So like even this like water bottle, it's going to come in probably like a cardboard box or maybe a plastic bag. That would classify as packaging. And then certain other goods, so like an iPhone, for example, that will have cables inside it. So that would be WEEE, waste, electronical and electrical equipment. Also, using the iPhone example, you'll also have to register for batteries as well. And that'll be it. So just depending on the different categories that your product falls into. And Brandon, your RC cars that you've got, those toys that you've got, because the batteries and things like that, they would fall into quite a few different ones. So it's just worthwhile knowing what your products are, what categories you would need to register for, because different countries will require that you register for different categories.
Part of what you do is we give you the product, and then you're going to go through this.
We'll tell you. Yeah. But this is one of those things. Again, it's hand-holding 101. We're not expecting you to know the ins and outs of how the German authorities work. That's why you come to us. 'Cause that's why I have to read all of these things. I don't read over all of these things just because I find it interesting, but because I want to make it simpler for people. So take the responsibility away from you and make sure that you can get selling and making profit. That's the fun part, right? That's what everybody's on this call for, obviously, in the end of it. So yeah, that's what we want to make it like nice and easy for you guys.
And basically what they're doing is trying to also have people reduce their packaging. Really, at the end of the day, if they charge you for more packaging, for more plastic, or any of these categories, then people will reduce it. So what they're trying to do is just reduce the amount of waste that's coming into their country. So they're passing on the buck to you as the seller, because you're bringing these type of categories into the countries. As Lewis said, some countries are just batteries. That's really like it. Other countries are much, much more comprehensive, as Germany and France, for example. They do have way more categories that you will have to register, but that again is something that we're always on top of. We're always reading and kind of like keeping up with the news of tax and compliance in all these countries. So
that's honestly a huge relief, because we don't know what we don't know.
Absolutely.
And it's the unknown that pops up that freezes your inventory, costs you a bunch of fees or a random tax bill or a bill. You could lose everything that you've invested to expand, and I've seen it happen.
I was gonna say, this can actually happen under the radar. If you've never registered for EPR and you've already been selling, don't be like, oh, well, they've never caught me and I have batteries or I have electronics. We've actually seen somebody selling over a year, over 8 months, and all of a sudden Amazon cracks down on a certain area or a certain category and the store shut down out of nowhere. So just because somebody has already been selling and has those categories and has never registered for EPR doesn't mean that you're not in a position where it could get shut down, because we've seen it happen. So it's just kind of like, ensure that you do this ahead of time, get ahead of it. It's a compliance matter. So you don't want to put your business at risk.
No.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Amazon will enforce it as well, because they are demanded to by the European Union. So it's
they don't want any more lawsuits, billion-dollar lawsuits. They're we know how Europe can get.
No, so this
Well,
will
let's,
show Seller Central as well, and when you wanna add a product to a catalog, if it requires this, it will tell you. So you won't be able to do that unless you have this. So it's very important, but not very complicated for us to help you with, of course.
Hey, if you're enjoying this content, you're going to love the masterclasses that we host on a regular basis. We've got over 1,000 members in our private community, and over 400 of them are already doing over $1 million. We regularly host masterclasses with hundreds of students, and you can find out more below. Join us.
I was just going to say, let's use the sandwich technique with that and finish up with a bit of a positive point, because in Spain and France, Amazon has a scheme called the Pay on Behalf scheme, whereby the Spanish authorities and the French tax authorities work with Amazon, and Amazon will basically pay your eco contributions on your behalf. So you as a seller don't have to do your own registrations in those two countries. Amazon will actually pay that for you, and then they will invoice you back. So you don't have to get your own registration. They'll make it nice and simple in Spain and France. They just want as many people.
What percentage of that, and when do we know that? Because I think that that's another thing that I heard from sellers who have failed in the past, are these hidden fees or expenses that come up, so they end up making no money or little money or even losing money when they sell through inventory. So are we fully aware of all this when we work with you ahead of time?
Correct. So that's what I was going to say. This could seem like a hidden fee to somebody doing this on their own, because could you just go and register for just VAT number with any random online? Yes, you could, but then you're in charge of making sure that you're compliant. You're in charge of your customs. You're in charge of your filing and your registration and making sure that you don't pay the wrong amounts, right? So that's going to be a whole lot of stuff that seller that just registered for their VAT on their own is going to have to be aware of. Whereas if you come to Avast, within the first call that you're with us, we'll let you know, based on your product, based on what you're looking to do, these are the options that you have. For example, we'll go through that Pan-EU Light option or the Pan-EU Full option. What are the differences? If you're looking to just do your own 3PL for a Shopify store, these are the differences. So we'll walk you through and handhold, as Lewis said, including what you're going to have to do for these specifications. So the EPR is something that we'll ensure that we talk about as well. So all of these things from the get-go, before you even register, you'll know what's required as a seller to be able to launch. Because we want to make sure it's successful for you as well as it is for us, because it doesn't make sense for us to tell you, go ahead and start selling in Germany, and then your store gets closed. Like that won't look, for anybody, it won't be a good or a pretty sight.
No, and also we keep track of all the changes and updates from the European Union so that you will know ahead of time, so you can prepare and take the time and
so the EU actually tells you in advance when they're going to change policy.
Well, or we have to be like on it. I will say a little bit of both.
Okay.
So,
sometimes we do get,
because we're not used to that in the United States. We could just wake up and things are different.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It depends per country. There are certain countries that take us by surprise sometimes. So that is the good thing about having boots on the ground and people in the different countries, because they talk to the tax authority on a very regular basis. So they develop relationships where they can ensure, can you please keep us in the know? And then those individual countries are letting the greater Avast, family know as well, so that we're all kind of like in the loop of all the changes that are happening.
We had a question about the EPR and the recycling waste. So it's a little confusing. You're registering for the EPR for the US, like as a US based entity or a citizen, but we still have to find someone to help us recycle the waste in that country, or
No.
No. You're just basically paying for it. So that's why I call it an eco tax. They don't like to call it an eco tax, but basically they're taxing you for bringing plastic or batteries or electronics into that country. So you're just paying it. They will just do the recycling, which how much is actually recycled, one doesn't really know, right? But it is it's just you're paying for that actual tax, and it's a contribution per se.